Hello and welcome to another Isadora video tutorial. My name's Sam Meach. This session is looking at how to use the live camera feed. We're going to be making a magic mirror, which essentially means taking the camera feed from your webcam, putting it through a series of video effects, changing some of those properties until the resulting final image looks very strange. If you haven't already, go back and look at the previous video about the basics of how to work with live capture input, turning on your webcam, etc. Let's crack on. The first thing we're going to do is turn on our camera and tell Isadora which device we want to use. So I'm going to go to Input and Live Capture Settings. Here we can see we've got channel 1 selected. I need to choose my video device, so I'm going to choose my FaceTime HD camera. And now I just press Start Live Capture and my thumbnail appears down here, and because I've already got it plugged in, my image has appeared in the stage. Now, so that's the first part of our magic mirror. It's getting a video image. The next stage is actually getting our video image to match up with ourself. So at the minute when I move left, my mirror image moves right and vice versa. So I need to get those two things in sync so I feel like I'm looking in a mirror. There's a great actor to do that, and it's called the flip actor. So the flip actor will flip the image. Now it doesn't do it automatically. We have to tell it which axis we want to flip. So we can see here it has two properties, flip horizontal and flip vertical. So we want to flip the image horizontally. So I'm going to click that off button and drag it up until it is on. So now you can see the image is flipped, and this version in the stage matches up with me looking at the image in real life. So we've got the basis of a mirror image. It's not a magic mirror, it's just a very standard reflection. What we need to do now is add some effects to that. So we can think about the effects as sort of falling into two broad categories. We've got image-based effects and time-based effects. So image-based effects, image effects are just changing, let's say, the graphic treatment of the image, things like colour. That can be very simple in terms of shifting some of the levels, but it could also be increasingly abstract, so you look very different, but it's simply about how the image looks. Time-based effects, on the other hand, are about how the image behaves. And they encourage you to move and shape the image, because the more movement, the more, it's hard to describe actually. The best thing is going to be to show you, but let's start with image-based effects. So here we've got one. I've put this in the little daisy chain after the flip actor. So this is just a video inverter. This one comes with a little color option property and a wheel of death apparently, but you can choose the base color by which the image is inverted. So white would just flip the values in a very standard way, but if you choose any other color, you get some very dramatic shifts of hue. I kind of like these yellow ones, so I'm going to go for that. But again, that's just treating how the image looks. So it already looks a bit strange, a bit magic, and a bit spooky. Let's see if we can make it look even stranger. So we're going to the next scene, an actor called Dots. Now this actor abstracts the image into a series of circular pixels, let's say. I'm not sure if pixels is the right word, but we can have circular dots or boxes, and you can see that it's definitely, there's a resemblance of me, and more of that comes out when I move, but it's very abstracted. I can change the degree to which it's abstracted by changing this value, the dot size. So that kind of looks like me, but the bigger I make it, the more abstract it becomes. So this depends entirely on your aesthetic, what you like to make. So that's image-based effects, but time-based effects actually encourage us to move in a different way. So the simplest time-based effect would be a video delay. Now all this does is it buffers the video feed by a series of frames. So here at the minute we've got 30 frames, so that's equivalent to 1 second. Now visually nothing's changed, but in terms of how I interact with my image and how I perceive my image, it is very strange, because that slight delay becomes this kind of weird, uncanny valley, where I'm trying to speak to you, but I'm getting distracted by the version of me that's in the past now. So yeah, it's a little bit odd. Anyway, but that's a good example of how, when we're thinking about magic mirrors and interaction, how time and feedback encourages its own kind of user behavior and interaction. Right, I'm turning him off. This again is a time-based effect. What this does is it takes a bunch of frames, but instead of just delaying them, it juggles them about, breaks them up and recompiles them over a series of frames. So this takes 45 frames, so about 1.5 seconds for the image to sort of stop and for the dust to settle. And what's nice about this is I become very ghostly. Anything that's not moving retains its clear definition, but anything that's moving becomes very ghostly. So you have to be still in order to appear. So that's the shimmer effect, and a lovely example of a time-based effect. It starts to feel quite abstract. A much more abstract one would be the slit scan. So this has its roots in the history of cinema. Slit scan technology, I think it was used for the 2001 film. And at first glance, it's not clear where I am. It's very abstracted. But if I start to move, I'll start to reveal a little bit how this is working. And you can see that actually there is an element of me that's in this central horizontal axis that's being extrapolated upwards and downwards. Now that axis can be shifted using this value, and it can even be made to be vertical as well. But what this does is it encourages us to play. It becomes more like a drawing program. So that's an example of a really abstracted magic mirror. And of course, each of these is just an effect in and of themselves. They each have their own parameters that you can manipulate. But where it becomes really interesting is where you start to bunch them together. So in this last scene, I've strapped 3 of them together in a daisy chain. And it might not be clear immediately what's going on. So we can see there's some of that slit scan happening, but it's working on something that is already quite abstracted. So if I turn these off one by one, we can see we have a video inverter going through a slit scan via a dot. So if I turn off the slit scan, first of all, there's the dots. And if I turn them off, we've got a video inversion image, and there's my basic image. So if I can turn that back on, can add the dots, and finally add a slit scan. So this becomes something very strange indeed. I hope you've enjoyed that. I encourage you to have a play and find your own magic mirror aesthetic, and hopefully see you again.